It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha. Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood and Dale McKee in the Brouhaha Central, and we got a guest in the house listening in tonight with us. It's kind of going to give us a review and see how it's really done.
Well, does he know that now that he's been in here and done this, that if you or I have to be gone, then
that's right. He can be roped in.
He's got experience.
And I tell you what, we both learning, and he learns that you can eat while doing a radio show at the same time. You're teaching him how to do that, right?
I am.
It's okay. You can laugh.
Maybe I should say, he taught me how to eat.
Well, for a real eater, one real eater to another. We're talking about our friend Marvin Chapman. And he's in here, and
is that his first name? I thought it was Coach.
Coach.
Okay, he's got a first name. Okay.
Yeah, he's sitting in here with us tonight, and going to just kind of listen in and see all the what not to do's about recording a radio show.
That's probably right.
Good to have you in the house, Coach. Well, Dale, let's talk about your sideline view a little bit. You got started off with some pretty big news. Starting us off with Notre Dame and Ohio State. Boy, that says a lot, just putting those two together in one sentence, doesn't it?
Yeah. Do you remember the movie Rudy?
No. Yeah, of course I remember the movie Rudy. Everybody remembers Rudy.
I can visualize Monday night in Atlanta. Number 45 running out of Notre Dame, ahead of all of those legends like Joe Theismann and all those guys.
Man.
New Rock.
Four horsemen.
Man. Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to tell you, if I was coach at Notre Dame, I would have 45 lead them on the field. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you?
I don't know.
Coach over there nodding, he would.
That might have been an insult to all those All-Americans that they had.
Rudy don't care.
No, he laughed all the way to the bank.
He come to play, baby. Yeah. He come to play.
He laughed all the way to the bank there.
Well, who you like?
Who do I like?
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, my heart says a little bit for Notre Dame, but honestly, I think Ohio State, just watching them the last couple of games, they just didn't play well against Michigan, and every team has a bump in the road. The first time they lost to Oregon, they didn't play bad. They just got beat 1 point out of Oregon. But they've got NFL body-type players. I mean, you don't see any, you don't see like any stomach sticking out, and these guys are built for it, and you can tell about their strength. I mean, they're almost the poster child for college football. This is what you want, Coach. If you go out and recruit a player, you need to look at these cats right here.
My son was telling me, and I'm going to mess this up not too long ago, said back, remember when Notre Dame played Alabama in the national championship and they had that linebacker, Monte Te'o?
Yeah.
And said, we were standing in the tunnel getting ready to come out. Mm-hmm. And said, man, we were jumping up and down and talking, and they had us coming out of the same end. And said, we were all jumping down, and all of a sudden everything behind us started getting quiet. And said, that one guy and some of those guys, a Fluker and that bunch on that offensive line from Alabama come walking by leading the team out, said they wasn't saying a word. Said their bellies was hanging out, their shirts up over their bellies, and said, man, that was the biggest bunch of folks we ever seen. He said, we were scared to death. He said, we couldn't even talk when we went out on the field. But I don't think that's going to be that way this time.
No, I think Notre Dame has drastically upgraded their football type players that they recruit, and it's kind of almost humorous to me. I keep seeing these little Facebook posts from time to time from I don't know where they come from. It's like Brian Kelly's in his office at LSU. You could never win a national championship at Notre Dame.
Better not tell that to Marcus Freeman.
I tell you what, if Notre Dame wins one, those Cajuns are not going to put up with him much longer.
He's gone. I'm going to tell you something now. Let's talk about this NIL thing. And I've heard some stuff, talking about this past year. I've heard, and they got the best roster, they got a $20 million roster and all this kind of stuff up there at Ohio State. The last couple of weeks I've heard them talking, and I heard Coach Day say, we spend our money on keeping the guys we had. Now, isn't that an interesting thought? Let's pay the guys, we've recruited them, let's pay them. Now, he said they got 3 starters, I believe I heard this right, and I forget stuff, you know how I do. And 3 guys they brought in through the portal that are playing. The rest of them, they got 3-year players on the team, and you get guys that's been there 3-4 years, buddy. You got some war-tested guys that's ready to go. I admire the way they did that. That's an interesting thought.
Well, I don't know exactly what 3 he was talking about, but they've got 2 former Ole Miss players and 1 Alabama player.
Yeah, that may be the 3. But these are guys that are starting.
Yeah, well, these guys are all starting for them.
Yeah, that's the 3.
And, I mean, it's just the 2 of them in the secondary. One of them went up there 2 years ago, one of the DBs from Ole Miss. I can't remember his name, but Junkin and Banks went last year.
Dale?
Yeah.
Who's our guest tonight? Do we got one? If we don't, we got one sitting over there. We can grab him and drag him up in here. But who we got?
We got Andrew Abadie of the Pine Belt Sports down in Hattiesburg, and he's going to fill us in on all the going-ons down at USM.
Oh boy!
Football-wise, basically, we're going to start with him on football-wise a little bit.
Okay.
And then we might get into the other sports, but we just want to catch up with him and his thoughts about the new coaching staff coming into Hattiesburg.
I'm excited about it. It's going to be good to talk to you about it. We can't wait. So let's take a break to hear from our sponsor, and then we'll be back with tonight's guest, Andrew Abadie, right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Andrew. Andrew, it's good to have you on the show today. I hope everything is well with you, and we'll take a few minutes of your time. We're going to discuss a little college football today. Listen, you kind of got your ear to the beat down there with the USM Golden Eagles. Tell us about what's transpired in the last few months with the new staff coming in, led by Charlie Huff.
Well, first off, thanks for having me back on. I mean, it's been a very busy off season with assembling a new coaching staff, and honestly, with the way the transfer portal works, assembling a new team. I mean, he's brought in a lot of players from Marshall. I think we're in the neighborhood of 15 to 20, I think 20. And, at the same time, Southern Miss has been able to keep some of their better players. Chris Jones, Reed Jasolowski were kind of the top 2. Ty Mims was another. So anybody who was, which mind you, there weren't too many, but anybody who was kind of a bright spot last year has stuck around. But I mean, essentially, Charles Huff is rehauling this roster.
Well, one of the biggest issues in the past few years has been the inconsistent play at maybe quarterback position, but a lot of that has to do with the offensive line and the rushing attack because it all goes together. But how's the quarterback room looking down there so far?
Yeah, he brought in Braylon Braxton, who was Marshall's starter on the Sun Belt Championship team. Braxton basically started 8 games. He started midway through the year, and he won all 8 games, was named the Sun Belt Newcomer of the Year. I mean, honestly, he's got the best credentials out of any quarterback in the last 5 or 6 years to come through Southern Miss. They actually just signed another somewhat experienced quarterback with Landry Liddy. I think that's how you say it. Kind of a career backup at Louisiana Tech, started a little bit, played at UAB last year. So I assume he's going to be their number 2 with just the experience he's got. And then John White is still around as well. So, I mean, he was a serviceable backup last season. Looking at offensive line, I mean, they've brought in some proven guys to say the least. With just bringing in guys with experience. Probably one of the big names is, and I know I'm going to butcher this name, is Alloy Maui, who's from Utah State, first team all conference guy. So it's been a lot of proven players from the Group of Five level as well as the FCS level of trying to assemble a more adequate offensive line.
Well, have they been able to keep several of the defensive players back from last year? As far as I know the defensive line was supposed to be a strength last year going into the season. And, of course, toward the end of the season, it seemed like everything was falling apart for them, unfortunately. But how's the defense looking?
Yeah, honestly, you might see one name. That's Chris Jones, who was, if I remember right, a Hartfield Academy alum. He was a really good true freshman for them. But, I mean, you start with the secondary. That secondary is completely gone. Anybody who is in the secondary, if that was going to be back, is in the portal. I mean, they have completely revamped that. And honestly, with the linebackers, too, probably one of the more bigger names that came in through the portal is Josh Moten, who's all-conference player from Marshall. He's got 6 career interceptions in like 2 years. So, that's fairly proven. D-line, it's nothing too crazy. I mean, really, they have gone out of their way to sign some really good secondary players. Another name that's proven is Dominic Hill. He kind of has a weird year at, if I remember right, Liberty, but, in 3 years he's got 82 career tackles, 8 pass deflections, kind of one of the better DBs in the portal in general. So it's a lot of either solid players or guys with just really good experience, and most of them are from Marshall. So that probably seems like what's going to be the strength of the team next year.
Well, looking at this transfer portal, and we know it's changed it's changed the heart of college football. It's, you can kind of reload, even if you have a bad year, you can kind of reload, and then some of the big name programs, they can just bring in pieces to kind of fit the puzzle. But how does this leave the high school and junior college players out? Is USM I saw earlier they had signed about 5 people in the early signing, but I haven't really seen anything since then. Did they sign many high school kids or JUCO kids?
I think they've only signed, from what I've seen or remember, one JUCO kid off the top of my head from East Mississippi. Now part of the reason that they signed 5 freshmen is because you have a coaching change right before signing day. And again, especially in the football landscape, people aren't recruiting high school kids as much because, you can get older kids and more experienced players in the portal and rebuild a roster faster. That's why these rebuilds are happening much quicker instead of having to wait 3 years, develop your first 2 freshman classes. I think they'll probably add some more junior college players. In last year's Sun Belt Media Day, if anybody had a new coach, every coach seemed to talk about how they added 70 to 80 new players to their roster. And it seems like Charles Huff is very much on that path. I assume after whatever else he gets from the portal, the majority of their signees will probably be junior college players. I would think, especially now with how people have to flip rosters so quickly, you're probably not going to see him really go after freshmen until maybe next year.
Well, with the way they've changed the junior college rules to where you can play basically 2 free years right now and then enter, I guess, a Division I school as with 4 years remaining. So it seems like the junior college would be almost the place for the high school kids to go. So they could, move on up into Division I if you're going to give them like 2 free years, just like a prep school, I would assume. Well, listen. All right, now football. Now, what about the schedule for next year? I know the non-conference schedule is going to have Mississippi State on it and Louisiana Tech. Tell us about of course, now we know the Sun Belt schedule was already given out, and I believe they're going to play App State and Georgia Southern as their Eastern Division games, along with their other 6 opponents on the West. But what about the 2025 season home schedule?
Yeah, so they're going to play 7 home games. They're going to host Jackson State as well. So, they'll basically play everybody in Mississippi, of course, with the exception of that team in Oxford. So, they'll have Mississippi State, Jackson State, Louisiana Tech, Jacksonville State, which is that's a pretty solid non-conference schedule. And then you look at the Sun Belt Conference. I think a lot of people wanted the Marshall Southern Miss matchup this year, and I think the Sun Belt just kind of missed out on a free viewership opportunity, honestly, with that. But Georgia Southern's a tough team. App State is going to be maybe not what they have been in the first few years of the Sun Belt, but the Sun Belt West has essentially been the Wild West the past few years. I mean, UL has won it, but it has not come easy for them. So it's anything can happen in the Sun Belt, especially more so in the West Division than the East. It just seems the way it's been the past few years. But they got a pretty tough schedule next year, especially when you open the season against Mississippi State.
Gotcha. Well, let's switch just a little bit. Let's switch to the college football playoffs right now. Anything stick out to you watching some of the games? Do you think the way they did the 12-team playoff was fair? Do you think maybe the two most deserving teams are in the championship?
I do think two of the better teams are in the championship. I think, kind of crazy how Notre Dame, they were kind of a laughing stock for a good 2 weeks after that Northern Illinois loss. But, I mean, they very much have looked apart. And, I mean, Ohio State is, they're always in the mix. And, honestly, it seemed like they had gotten better down the stretch. But, I think the one thing people are kind of unhappy about is how the majority of these games have not been pretty or at least fun to watch. And while at first I was kind of on board with, okay, the 4 conference champions should probably be the 4 highest seeds. And, kind of looking back on it now, it's like, okay, well, but are they the 4 best teams? And is that why we're having such blowouts, So maybe they need to, I think, they should get the guaranteed at large bids, but maybe they need to tweak the seeding a little bit. Maybe that'll help the games be more competitive from top to bottom. But, I'm no expert in any of it. I'm going to critique it afar, just like everybody else.
Yeah, I remember, 5 years ago, you could write it. You could write in June before the season started. Okay, Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State's going to be the 3 of the 4 final teams. Who's going to be the other one? And it was like the one team was playing the other 125 or what it is in Division I football. They were fighting for that one spot, I mean, it was kind of, but you have blowouts in the NFL. I mean, we had a blowout last night, Minnesota and Los Angeles. Who would have expected that, honestly, but I guess what's going on in California gave the Rams a little extra incentive there. But, you're always going to have blowouts, so I don't know how really you can spot that. But I really enjoyed this, I think last weekend, I really enjoyed those ball games with Texas and Ohio State. It went down to the last minute, and Notre Dame and Penn State was just like an old black and blue game there. All right, well, listen, now that we've talked about college football for a little bit, tell us about what your thoughts on about and since he was in Mississippi a few years ago, what are your thoughts about the Dallas Cowboys talking to Deion Sanders?
Prime time, baby.
No surprise. We've kind of seen firsthand how Deion operates. He wants to coach his kid for seems like for his entire career. I think Deion's strength in college is that he's able to bring in really good talent, but from an X's and O's standpoint, he's not the best coach. Definitely saw that in the BYU game and the bowl game. He has to rely on his assistants a lot. And again, what's made him such a good coach in college is that he can bring in these big-time recruits that Colorado and Jackson State will probably never get again. And, the NFL is a different beast. There's contracts and, that you don't have the transfer portal where you can just completely oust kids if you want. It's going to be a different landscape. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that Jerry Jones would do that, but at the same time, I just don't know if you can get away with trying to out-talent people in the NFL. You can do it in the college level for sure. We've seen it. But I don't know if Deion, I mean, I know Deion thinks he's ready for that, and I know he played in the NFL and he's defied all these people, but again, his coaching is going to have to step up if that's something they're going to do. Also, Mike McCarthy was pretty good for the Cowboys, so anxious to see what happens for Dak Prescott of all people as well.
Well, I know a lot of people bash Jerry Jones, but I'm not so much bashing him, but I just don't understand some of the things he did. He needed a running back last year, and there was a guy out there named Derrick Henry. I think Derrick Henry had a really, really good year with Baltimore. And, and Derrick Henry lives in Dallas and wanted to play for the Cowboys. And then he waits till the last week of the season, and he benches his guy that had been filling in for Dak Prescott, because if the guy played, he could have possibly earned a $250,000 bonus. So he wouldn't let him play, or told the coaches not to play. Then he waits till the last minute to tell Mike McCarthy. Well, it hurt him too. It hurt Jerry Jones, because they've already started the interview process with a lot of these coaches and assistant coaches and that want to be head coaches. So I just wonder if he's really all in, or if it's just really the circus that he likes to have surrounding the Cowboys. Because if you ask me, go out there to the Los Angeles Dodgers and find out who is invested in their team and who wants to win. Because the Dodgers are probably doing it better than anybody right now. But Jerry, but what are your, should have Mike McCarthy, if he had the option, Andrew, just your opinion, would you have stayed with the Cowboys or gone to the Chicago Bears, who supposedly really want Mike McCarthy?
I think what you see with the Cowboys, and I think anybody can most people can speak on this experience of what it's like to have a boss who is, they're behind your back the whole time. They're over involved. They're, I can't think of the term for it, but somebody who's not letting you actually do your job because they're trying to do it for you in their own way and overextending themselves. It's just not a fun work environment to be in, or ideal, especially at that level. So from that alone, I think I've always thought this, Jerry Jones does not need to be the GM. Because obviously it has not worked for him, and for him to not realize that after so many years is just kind of bonkers, especially when you're a businessman. But yeah, if I'm Mike McCarthy, if it's the Bears, sure, but and this would be as a player too, I want to go to the best functioning franchise. If that's the Bears, in his opinion, sure. But I think it's more of a who's the most stable, who's the most ideal, and what fits best for me. But I mean, he's going to get a job. And, there's people in New Orleans that kind of want McCarthy in New Orleans, too.
Andrew, this is Marshall. And I told you in our little pregame interview there that there'd come a time when I'd show up and say we were out of time. Well, there we are. We really appreciate you taking your time to be with us tonight, and want to ask you to hold on. And we're going to take a break to hear from our sponsor, and Dale and I will be back with tonight's final segment of the Brouhaha right after this commercial break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everybody. I think that's the second time Andrew's been with us over the past 2 or 3 years.
Second or third.
Yeah, he's a good guy, man. He's and we got that USM connection. He's involved, and I was excited to hear what he had to say.
Well, he goes to about every sporting event they have, as far as football, basketball, and baseball. So he kind of knows it.
He looks like he might could play a little bit. He's a Husky guy. He might could play a little.
Well, really. Run into him several times, and
he's not as big in life as he looks in his picture.
No, I mean he's a fit person because he runs a lot. And but he's not that he's not that tall or muscular like maybe his picture.
Like you?
But I wonder where he got that picture done.
Yeah.
I'd like to find out.
Man, we're hammering it.
Yeah.
Man,
I could take it home to my wife and see what you got.
Listen, Dale, we enjoyed him being here, and we appreciate that very much. You know, I've been looking at this transfer portal, what's been going on.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm looking at the lack of what I deem the lack of success, appreciation, or whatever you want to call it, the SEC's had in the postseason play. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering, do you think the transfer portal, there's a lot more parity in football than there was, and do you think the transfer portal has released some of the players that were buried on SEC rosters and benches into the football world these days? How many players do you think have transferred out in 2024? Would you take a wild guess on how many football players left the SEC?
Left just the SEC.
Yeah, to go to other conferences?
Let me see.
And you don't know this, and this is a wild guess for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hitting you. So I'm not going to hold you responsible for making a bad answer.
Okay, let me
You can't lose, Dale.
383.
Man, that's pretty close.
Come on.
313.
313.
313 players in 1 year. 2024, bless the SEC. Do you think that's having an impact on the SEC's dominance over the game?
Well, I think it helps. I mean, I think it hurts as far as your depth. But you know, in Alabama, what made them so successful for so many years under Coach Saban was the fact that they had so much competition. If you they were
on the roster.
Yeah.
Okay.
They were almost like a NFL team in a sense. That every day an NFL player goes out to practice, somebody's there to take his job.
Yeah.
You know, and if you don't perform, somebody will take it. Well, you know, Alabama had that kind of deal going then. I don't know if Alabama's roster is, I can't see it being like it was under Saban. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. Because people they gravitated to Saban because they thought Saban could get them in the next league, you know. Yeah. It's now like Carson Beck from Georgia going to go to Miami and join his girlfriend for $4 million a year, which I would too.
Yeah.
I'd join my girlfriend for $4 million too. But anyway.
What is that noise? That's sound like Tinkerbell coming through the studio here.
Yeah.
Well, let's close out our show with one of the most talked about football players probably in history, and that'd be Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers. What's Quinn going to do? You think he's going to stay at Texas? He going to leave? He going to go to the NFL? He going to play college? Or what's he going to do?
Well, I've heard that he got a rating of like a middle round call, like a middle round draft deal. Yeah. But I don't think Texas fans appreciate where they were 3 years ago before he got there. Yeah. I mean, they were reeling.
Yeah.
And he brought, he's
good.
Kind of got him. But I think it's probably a time for him to go on because I think that I just think that really they brought Arch in to play. And they want him to play a couple years. Yeah. They got a lot invested in Arch too. Yeah. So I think it's going to be Arch's team going forward. I think he'll be for someplace else next year.
I've even heard Georgia mentioned in the mix.
Well, that would be a good pick, you know.
I'm Manning all the way. I'm Manning all the way. Been a big Manning fan, but I kind of hate that for Quinn. He's caught in a bad spot. In a way, being in front of Arch.
He's almost being pushed out the door by the younger guy. You know? But Arch has got a great talent. But the only thing that you worry about who is after Arch.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're a Texas fan, because I mean, Eli's the only one I remember really didn't get hurt.
Yeah.
Archie got hurt several times. Peyton got hurt, had to sit out a year. And things like that. So, but quarterback's a dangerous position to play.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Well, listen, Dale, I appreciate you. It's time. We're about out of time. We want to thank our guest, Andrew Abadie, for being with us tonight. We want to thank you for joining us. Remember that you can track with us on our Facebook page at the Brouhaha, and all of our shows are cataloged for you to listen to on demand at our YouTube channel, the Brouhaha. And but now it's come to that time where we got to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
And we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Del McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.